And following that anti-xenophobia march through Hillbrow through Johannesburg, there is a media briefing, and also members of Operation Tukela have gathered around the arrest of Nhlanhla Lux. Let's take you there and see what's happening on the ground.
Because we have given them an opportunity to make sure that they protect his life for these 2 nights. I thank you very much. We will see you tomorrow, Leader Mabunda. You want to say something?
Down with sellouts, down! Comrades, please let's remain disciplined. Let us disappoint the enemy. We will be there tomorrow. They thought we'll get tired, but we are here today. And tomorrow we'll be here. Comrades, you know that we slept here yesterday.
All right, this gathering comes after what we understand that Nhlanhla Lux, the leader of Operation Tukela that has led some of those marches against foreigners or illegal foreigners, they say, he has been denied bail. So supporters rather saying that they will return tomorrow and gather, and we'll follow that for you. And let's look at what happened earlier. After initially being banned, a march against xenophobia took place today. Kopanang Africa Against Xenophobia planned a march for Human Rights Day, but that was banned by Joburg Metro Police. And then the decision was overturned by the High Court. Let's speak to someone behind the march today. We're joined by Kopanang Africa Against Xenophobia organizer Dr. Trevor Ngwane. We're also joined by the organizer who appointed Advocate Tembeki Ngukai Toby to argue the case for this march today, and that is the Socio-Economic Rights Institute of South Africa. We're joined by attorney Asenati Tukela. All right, let me start with you, Mr. Ngwane. You said that you wanted to show solidarity with foreigners. Tell me what the message was. I hear that people today were also saying that government is scapegoating foreigners, government blaming them. Do you believe that government is encouraging what's going on? Just tell us the message.
Yeah, the message is that this thing of xenophobia is diverting our attention from matters, of importance in South Africa. So, for example, and also it's hiding the role of the ANC government in continuing the oppression and exploitation of the vast majority of the people of South Africa. So, for example, only 2 weeks back, the World Bank declared that South Africa is the most unequal society in the world. So this is the conversation which you and I and everyone should be having. How to stop this injustice where the victims of apartheid, of colonialism, of capitalism continue to suffer. But here we are talking about the poor attacking the poor. Members of the working class attacking the members of the working class. Black people attacking black people. Yeah. Africans are attacking Africans. So that is our message.
And it sounds like you both take this very seriously. Asenati Tukela, why is this, as you say, or as the organizers say, a threat to South Africa, which is a society based on democratic principles and human rights?
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having us. This is it's a huge threat to democracy and a huge threat to human rights. It's a threat to people freely and efficiently practicing and enjoying their human rights. What defines a democratic country is the ability for people to fully practice and efficiently enjoy their human rights. When people are denied the enjoyment equally of those rights with the people who are citizens of that country, that is a huge threat to democracy, and it's a huge threat to the enjoyment of human rights.
Mr. Ngwane, let's talk about government. Let's continue that discussion, because not only is the economy a problem, but government does have plans in place to restrict foreigners in certain sectors of the economy, in unskilled work. Is that fair enough? We do see restrictions in other parts of the world, or is that unfair discrimination in your eyes?
Well, it's more than unfair. It shows how the ANC government and the ANC leaders are moving away from the goals and ideals of the national liberation movement, from the goals of the struggle for freedom, the struggle for equality, the struggle for Pan-African unity, for international solidarity, the struggle, to allow everyone to have a place under the sun. So the discussion about labor, the discussion about, trade, these are just symptoms of a rightward shift, moving away from the ideal of unity, but towards sectarian, divisive, and unfortunately, eventually genocidal policies, devastating policies, which will drive this country over the cliff.
Yeah. So you're saying the rhetoric and the policy moves and what we're seeing now could lead to many murders down the line. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, yes, because remember, for one thing, although we can talk about South Africa, but there is no South African economy. It's a Southern African economy. From centuries ago, Lesotho, Eswatini, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Malawi has been part of this economy. The labor which built Johannesburg, the labor which built South Africa, as an economic engine of Africa, has been always sourced from these countries. Indeed, the cultural, political, economic, social links between all these countries in Southern Africa are actually, you can't separate them. So this is an attempt to roll back history. It's an attempt to do the impossible. It's an attempt to break down families, break down long-standing historical boundedness. And as such, we shouldn't allow it. It can only lead to disaster.
Mr. Tukela, do you agree? And let's clarify that this is in the context of freedom of movement in some parts of Africa, a move towards that, and a move to better trade between Africans. What do you think other countries are thinking, looking at what's going on right now?
Yes, political solidarity depends on the relations that each country makes with the next country. And xenophobia defeats that idea, it defeats that vision. Political freedom and right to political association and movement deems back to the historical struggle against apartheid and oppression. The idea was to achieve freedom, political and economic freedom. And that included the right to associate, the right to citizenship, and in that achieving solidarity and African unity and African solidarity. So I agree with what Comrade Ngwane is raising. And from a human rights perspective, the actions and the attacks that we have seen, the conduct of various mob groups that have mobilized against foreign nationals and have displayed extreme xenophobic attacks against African brothers and sisters, that defeats the idea of African unity and continental solidarity. And it defeats the efficient and free practice of human rights and enjoyment of human rights.
Ms. Ngwane, for the march to go ahead today, there was a bit of a legal battle. We'll talk about that if we have time. But firstly, there were other gatherings in Cape Town and Bloemfontein on Human Rights Day. And then this march did go ahead today. And of course, some opposition from members of Operation Dudula, but apparently no clashes. Tell me more. Do you think that South Africans are listening to your message?
Well, I do believe that the vast majority of South Africans are not going to fall into this trap of blaming the problems of South Africa on immigrants. You know, they know the history of this country. They know who is making the big money in South Africa. It's not the immigrant from Malawi or from Mozambique. In fact, usually, these immigrants end up with the most low-paying jobs. And some of them don't take anyone's job, but they set up little spaza shops, small micro-level businesses. So I think that is what is happening. So I believe that, you know, these people who are fomenting xenophobia, on the one hand, they're trying to divide us. On the other hand, they're trying to scapegoat, you know, the problems of maybe a social and economic system which favors the rich against the poor and blaming it on the poor.
Were you there today, finally? What was the feelings, what was the mood like when these two groups met each other in Hillbrow on the streets of Johannesburg?
Well, to be honest, I mean, politically, Operation Tudula does not even, you know, feature anywhere because, as I say, it's a diversion, you know. So we did our thing. We marched to the Hillbrow police station, delivered our memorandum, insisted, emphasized to the station commissioner that they must defend all people, whether from Malawi, from Ethiopia, from Somalia, from Nigeria, from Eswatini. Then we moved to the Johannesburg Central police station, where by coincidence, Nhlanhla is in there. So some of Nhlanhla's supporters were there, but we simply ignored them because we knew what we had come there to do. And we are certain that after a few months, this movement will fizzle away because it's got no political vision, it's got no political future. It's just a lot of opportunism which will dissipate and go away.
All right, and you can see the breaking news on your screen. And Nhlanhla, who is the leader of Operation Tudula, has been denied bail. Thank you both very much. That was Kopanang Africa Against Xenophobia organizer Dr. Trevor Ngwane and attorney at the Socio-Economic Rights Institute of South Africa, Asenati Tukela.